Welcome to Class Time English Language. We are looking at connecting ideas with the semicolon. All right? And pay attention. I am going to show you something very important. Here we have two pieces of fabric. Here's one piece, and here is the other piece. Beautiful, aren't they? Right. Okay, now look at the colors. The colors are very beautiful, bright. Now, on this particular fabric, what are the colors that we see on this fabric? Okay, I see green. Okay, there's black. And what color is in the background? Beige. Okay, very good. And there's red. Okay, any other? Orange. Okay then, wonderful. All right then, look at this other piece. This one. Green. Red. There's also beige. Okay. This is blue. Okay then, and a tinge of black. All right. Now I am going to hold the two pieces up like this. And do you see a connection in the colors? Okay, wonderful. You could say the pieces of fabric really match. They are complementary. Okay, so green and green, red and red. Okay then, anything else? Okay, so we have a difference. The orange is not there. Okay, all right. So the blue over here, and the black and black. So the idea is that you can find a part of one fabric expression in the other. You can find a part of this expression in this, and you can find a part of this expression in that because of the colors. So the two pieces of fabric connect because they have similar colors in them. All right then? So today we are going to explore the idea of a connection between two thoughts in the same way that you could easily wear these two pieces of fabric in a style and you are complementary in what you do. Okay then, wonderful. And before we go further, we are going to take a look at our CSEC English B copyrighted objectives for this lesson. Okay, you are expected to explain meaning conveyed through punctuation and paragraphing, draw valid conclusions and inferences from information presented, and use appropriate diction and suitable punctuation and paragraphing to convey meaning clearly and with facility, okay, fluently. All right. Now, remember the ideas of the colors. So we have connecting colors, and we were able to look at the colors to see the connection between the pieces of fabric. And we also looked at this one, and we saw the connection. When two ideas connect, okay then, in writing, you should try to insert the semicolon. That's the concept of the idea we are exploring today. Now, I could make a sentence about this, all right? The colors in one piece of fabric are red, blue, green, and yellow. The other piece of fabric has similar colors and white patterns. So, white patterns and similar colors. Now, what we have here are two separate sentences, all right? In the same way that they are two different pieces of fabric. But I would like to show the connection. So look at how I show the connection. All right. The colors of one piece of fabric are red, blue, green, and yellow. The other piece of fabric has similar colors and white patterns. So I have inserted the semicolon to create a connection. So instead of two separate sentences that we had before in the former slide, I have now shown the connection by inserting the semicolon. Okay? Notice that the two sentences are independent. They are independent. You could easily put the period right here as we had in the former sentences, separating the two sentences. But because they are so closely connected, you put the semicolon right there. Okay then? So that is our idea. Remember the connection between two sentences that are closely connected. We use a semicolon to do that. Now, let us look at this. How would you, based on the example that you just saw, how would you rewrite this? Okay, right here. So notice how you have rewritten it. So I live about 100 meters from the coffee factory. I prefer to walk the distance than drive. So to rewrite the sentence, inserting the semicolon, what is the connection here? You are looking about 100 meters, okay then? And the connection between this is right here, distance. So these two sentences are referring to distance from the same place. So we have the two similar expressions of distance in these two sentences. So then, I live about 100 meters from the coffee factory. Insert my semicolon. I prefer to walk the distance than drive. So I have connected the two independent clauses which are expressing a close idea with the semicolon. Okay, that's very important, and I'm going to stress the independent clause some more as we go along. That's so the critical point of the skill is to recognize when you have an independent clause in your writing, but for some reason you want to go on and say something else in connection to what you just said. When you reach that stage, put the semicolon in, okay then? And we're going to look at that some more. So look at this one. She rarely eats fruits at nighttime. However, I enjoy eating fruits at any time. So you see, eating fruit and eating fruits, just the way you see the color and the color, those two colors and other colors are in each other. The two sentences, they have ideas which are very close. So therefore, I am going to say that you rewrite it with the semicolon. Look at this. So then, notice what I have done here. I have removed, okay, the capitalization, and I have lowered it to the common H in order to rewrite the sentence. So she rarely eats fruits at nighttime. However, I enjoy eating fruits at any time. So the connection, two independent clauses are to be connected with a semicolon to show the relationship between the two ideas. The two ideas are complementary, and when that happens, you insert the semicolon to show the connection. All right. So we have been speaking a lot about the semicolon, and now we are going to look at the definition, according to our concise Oxford English Dictionary, the main role of the semicolon is to mark a grammatical separation that is stronger in effect than a comma, but less strong than a full stop. Now, I read that and it is not helping me a lot. And I know sometimes you're confused. It does not actually give you something functional to work with. So let's continue. Normally, the two parts of a sentence divided by a semicolon balance each other. All right, now, so we are getting on to more understanding. Balance, okay? Balance, match each other rather than leading from one to the other. Look at this first sentence. The sky grew bright with sunset. The earth glowed. All right then. So the light, okay, effect of the light is being expressed over here. So there is a connection and the semicolon is placed right there. Sentence number 2, Honey looked up and glared. The man scurried away. All right then. So here again, she looked up and glared. The man scurried away. We see that the object of, the man got the message and he scurried away. The thoughts are connecting. Notice though that we have an independent clause ending here and another independent clause over here. Now that is the idea I would like you to get from this lesson. An independent clause is another name for a main clause, but it's really a sentence. So a sentence is a clause or a statement that is complete in itself. We know that. But the problem is, where do I put the punctuation marks? Those are the things that give us trouble. So when you are thinking of inserting the semicolon into your expression to connect your thoughts, remember that where you would normally come to the end of a sentence, but you really want to say something more, you put the semicolon. So the semicolon in this lesson, we are looking at connecting independent ideas which have something in common with the semicolon. And so we are going to move forward. There are other uses of the semicolon. For another use, it says for a stronger division in a sentence that already has commas. So let's read it. What has crippled me? Was it my grandmother frowning on my childish affection and turning it to formality and cold courtesy? Or my timid, fearful mother in awe of everyone, including, finally, me? Or was it my wife's infidelities or my own? A really long sentence. So you would naturally be placing some commas there. But because the sentence is so long, let us see where the clauses are, the independent clauses. So the first independent clause would end at courtesy, right? So, was it my grandmother frowning on my childish affection and turning it to formality and cold courtesy? So the question mark could actually come here and end, but the person is still wondering. So the coming over now with the connection of the conjunction, my timid, fearful mother in awe of everyone, including finally me. So that could be a second question. So we actually have 3 questions in this statement. But because the person is asking it in one flowing thought, the semicolon comes into use, okay, to show where one clause ends and the other begins. All right then. So that's really a complicated piece of writing, but we are really focusing on connecting independent clauses with the semicolon. And why are we using the semicolon? We are using the semicolon because one part of the idea really is in the other sentence, and it makes a lot of sense to just go on expressing yourself. All right then? And so you insert the semicolon to show that the connection is really there. Now, it is very important when you are connecting with the semicolon, all right then, not to use a comma, and we're going to look at that later on. Okay, now look at this sentence. When angry, count to 4. When very angry, swear. Okay? Okay then. All right. So we see you is understood, okay, as a subject, and we would put the semicolon after the 4. All right. So that is very, very important. Let us move on to another example. Look at this. Okay, for C now. I am sure he took it. In fact, I am positive he did. All right. And where do you put the semicolon? I am sure he took it. Okay, so the end of the first sentence is actually at the it. Okay, but you're not finished speaking. In fact, I am positive he did. So we have a transition and the person is continuing to express. So he took it and I'm positive he did. The ideas are so close, all right, that I do not want to separate them. I would like to show the connection. So the semicolon goes here. All right. Look at D now. 40 is the old age of youth. 50 is the youth of old age. Okay, and that's a quotation. So here we have the answer. 40, okay, is the old age of youth. End of statement, independent clause. Okay then, a sentence. But the person is continuing. 50 is the youth of old age. Now, what is the difference between this sentence and this? Here we have the thoughts running along. The thoughts just running along. But here we actually have a transition. A transition. So you put the semicolon and the comma after the transition and you continue to write. But here, so many of you make errors right here, where the thoughts, the two independent thoughts, are running along in the same expression and there is no indication of a transition. And I'm going to look into that later on in the lesson. Why we need to look out for this and what is the error that you tend to make right here. So this is a sentence. This is a sentence. 50 is the youth of old age. You could cut the sentence right there. 40 is the old age of youth, but there's really a connection, right? Because you're speaking of two aspects of age, of aging. So you connect because they are both expressing, you know, contrasting ideas in relation to the same thing. All right then. Okay, so we're going to move on. Now, analyze the 3 sentences below and state which one has the semicolon appropriately placed. Which one has the semicolon appropriately placed? What is the answer? Okay then, let us take a look at the answer. All right. No, that's not the answer. So let's go back up to the answer first. The answer is C. C. He seemed quite decent in his own way and harmless, but he made her feel uncomfortable. Two independent clauses. He seemed quite decent and harmless. You could put a full stop there. Okay? Here's a conjunction to carry you over, but he made her feel uncomfortable. All right? So the semicolon is placed right here to show the separation, okay, of the two independent clauses. Now let us look up here. What is wrong with B? To err is human, to forgive divine. Okay, then the semicolon should be at human. To err is human. One expression, to forgive divine. So the semicolon would have to be placed right here. What about A? Advice is seldom welcome, and those who want it the most always like it the least. Where do you notice the independent clause? Or where do you sense that the sentence, the first sentence, has come to an end? At welcome. Remember that we are in this lesson learning that when two independent clauses have a relationship or a connection, you connect the ideas with a semicolon. If you do not remember anything else, if you do not remember where to put the semicolon again, just check your writing to see if the part that comes after the semicolon can be expressed as a sentence. If it cannot be expressed as a sentence by itself, then the semicolon would be in the wrong place, or maybe it's another mark that you need and not the semicolon. All right, let us look at another one. Okay, this one. There's an error here. What is the error now? Let's take it apart. It says, in a way, it unnerved her to say it. The semicolon is not in the right place. So what is the problem? Okay, we have only one independent clause. Okay, this one is a challenging you. There is only one sentence right here. So the semicolon is not needed at all. Sometimes when you are writing, you put the semicolon as a kind of decorative thing in your work. Remember that the semicolon should be placed between two independent clauses. So this semicolon, you would lose marks for this because this statement does not need a semicolon. So just to revise on what we did before, we are looking at the semicolon. And we are saying that the semicolon is a mark that is used when we have independent ideas and we are seeking to connect the ideas. If you put the semicolon in a sentence and you do not see after the semicolon what could possibly be another sentence, meaning it is complete. Subject, object, the thought can stand by itself. The verb is there. If you look and you do not see where the other part of the sentence can stand by itself, or the expression can stand by itself, then you should not put the semicolon there. Or you may want to edit your work and make the thought more complete before you put the semicolon in it. So I just want to make sure that we are clear on the critical point. So we were looking at this, and we're just going to take a brief review. Sometimes you put the semicolon without thinking, okay? You're thinking that you want to just pause a little in your writing, but the semicolon should only be placed where there's an independent thought or something that reads as a sentence. So that is the reason that we chose C as the correct answer here, because he seemed quite decent in his own way and harmless. That is a complete thought, an independent expression which can stand by itself. And despite the conjunction that you have there to connect, this part, he made her feel uncomfortable, is really a second sentence. The conjunction here, but, is simply transitioning. But if you should leave this, everything without putting a semicolon, you would end up with a sentence with an error, not properly written because it needs a mechanical mark. So here the semicolon is placed here to connect the two ideas. So that's what we really want to get in this lesson, that we use the semicolon to connect ideas. There is a thought that is linked to the previous thought, and you connect it with the semicolon. And we also looked at these two, and we want to also spot the problem. Because if you do not know when to use a semicolon wrongly, what is going to happen is that you will not be able to avoid the pitfalls. So we are looking at some examples where the semicolon is in the wrong place. Okay then, so for B, this part is just a phrase. It's not enough to say, I want to just hold my breath a little and then I continue expressing myself. You should really put it where you have the end of an independent thought or a sentence. So this would be an error, but sometimes you make these errors. So to err is human, okay? So you would need to have the semicolon right here to forgive divine. All right then? So, okay then, so right up here, we have advice is at A is seldom welcome. You need a semicolon right here. And those who want it the most always like it the least. So the semicolon should go here before the and. Okay then? So those were what we looked at. And we also looked at this one. And we wanted to find out what is the error. So the separation has come here, but this part, okay, is just a phrase. It's not complete in its thought. In a way, it unnerved her to say it. It's just one expression. One expression. So you really do not need the semicolon at all in this particular expression, because it's all of it is just one independent thought. So you would not put the semicolon there. All right then. So those are our revision ideas. And now we are looking at putting the semicolon where it is really needed. So what's the critical point again? The critical point is to look for where there could possibly be an independent thought. Dualism underlines the condition of man. Every sweet has its sour, every evil its good. For everything you have missed, you have gained something, and for everything you gain, you lose something. All right then? So let us study it together and see where it is that you see that there's an independent thought that needs to be marked off with a semicolon. Okay, the first one is already independent, and we ended with the period there, right? So it would have to be a long expression with two independent thoughts. Every sweet has its sour, every evil its good. Okay, so it is saying that every evil has its good and every sweet has its sour. So those right there, we have two connecting ideas right there. And the second one says, for everything you have missed, you have gained something. Okay? And for everything you gain, you lose something. So right there again, you can see that there are actually two different things being expressed. And you could actually say, for everything you have missed, you have gained something. So that is an independent expression, and which is the conjunction connecting it. Everything you gain, you lose something. So let us look now at the answer for the analysis. So there we have it. Dualism underlines the condition of man. Every sweet has its sour. Every evil its good. Okay, so right here, independent thought. It is really saying every evil has its good, but because we have the has here, okay, and you economy of writing, you don't necessarily repeat what is implied, all right? So here we have the first semicolon, and down here, as I said, for everything you have missed, you have gained something. That's an independent thought. That could stand on its own. And, which is really the conjunction there, for everything you gain, you lose something. So you could just look at someone and say, for everything you gain, you lose something. All right, so that's independent as well. And the semicolon would go right here. All right then, so how do we use the semicolon? We are using the semicolon to connect independent thoughts. Whenever you are writing and your mind tells you to use a semicolon, examine the writing first. Look and see whether or not the expression that you have just finished is independent, and the one that would come after the semicolon, all right then, would be able to stand on its own, in spite of the fact that the two ideas that you are expressing are near, very near, and you cannot leave it like that. So you insert the semicolon between the two to connect the ideas. So before you put the mark, look to see whether what comes after the semicolon can stand independently. If it cannot stand independently, do not put the semicolon in your writing. All right then? So that's a very important critical point that you should remember. All right. So then let us move forward. Here is a very challenging one. This one is taken from Blackout by Roger Mace. It's creative writing, and so it does not follow conventional rules of writing. You know, creative writers, they really have a license to be able to express themselves. Creative writing is not ordinary writing. But in spite of that, every creative writer would like you to get an understanding of what he or she is writing. And in order for them to do that, they have to create independent thoughts, just the same. So let us examine this. What are we looking for? we are looking to see where there is an independent expression and whether or not we should put the semicolon there. So the speaker says, it was a young man dressed in conventional shirt and pants with a pair of canvas shoes on his feet. I'm right here. That was what lent the suggestion of slinking to his movements, because he went along noiselessly. That and the mere suggestion of a stoop, for he was very tall. And there was a curious look as of a great hunger or unrest about the eyes. But the thing that struck her immediately was the fact that he was black. The other particulars scarcely made any impression at all as against that. In her country, it is not every night that a white woman would be likely to be thus nonchalantly approached by a black man. All right, so you get the overtones of race and that kind of thing. We know that it's in a foreign situation and a contrast is being made. So we get the message. Often when we read content, okay, then we understand the content. So it's important to understand the content of what you read, and you should understand what it is that you're trying to say. Okay, the mechanical marks now are there to help to make the understanding clearer. So let's look at it. Okay, then there are actually 2 semicolons in this piece of work. So the first one looks okay. It was a young man dressed in conventional shirt and pants with a pair of canvas shoes on his feet. That looks okay. And that was what lent the suggestion of slinking to his movements, because he went along noiselessly. You hear as if an independent thought is coming out right there, right? That and the mere suggestion of a stoop. And there was a curious look as of a great hunger or unrest about the eyes. So that's okay. But the thing that struck her immediately was the fact that he was black. The other particulars scarcely made any impression at all as against that. So let's go to the answer. All right then. So we are seeing that this sentence right here, starting with that was what lent the suggestion of slinking to his movements, because he went along noiselessly. Okay? Semicolon. The sense of an independent thought right here, the speaker has come to the end of a thought that can stand by itself. That and the mere suggestion of a stoop. So that, okay, is a transition from the slinking of his movements and is walking noiselessly. And we can see that the second semicolon is down here. Okay? Now, it begins with but remember, it is creative writing. So there's room for style. So, but the thing that struck her immediately was the fact that he was black. All right? End of one thought. So the sentence continues, the other particulars scarcely made any impression at all as against that. All right? So we have another independent thought right here. A very lengthy expression. But here we see that the semicolon, in spite of the fact that it is creative writing. So if you're writing your stories and you are able to put in dialogue and other expressions to make it very interesting or to make a point, you still have to have a sense of independent thoughts. You still have to punctuate. So when you are expressing yourself, you still need to be mindful of the particular punctuation marks that you are using. And here we have the independent thought coming into the creative expression. Now, I would like to just go to the board right now to show you something that you need to pay attention to. Look at this sentence. It says, the man ate the apple, it tasted delicious. Now, if you have been following our discussion, right, you would know by now that an independent thought is marked off from another independent thought in a sentence with a semicolon. When you are expressing yourself and you have two independent thoughts which you are expressing as one sentence, as this. So it says, the man ate the apple, it tasted delicious. It is one expression. The period is there to end of expression, but actually what you have are two connecting thoughts in the same expression. And what you do is often, so often, you put the comma there, and the comma creates a run-on sentence. All right then? And that is very important to know that you should not insert the run-on sentence, the comma to create a run-on sentence. And we're going to take another look at that. It is very often that when you are writing, the other error that you should avoid making is using commas when you should actually be using the semicolon. What is the critical point about the semicolon again? The semicolon is used in a statement where you could easily have two sentences or even three. We looked at an example a while ago where there were actually three sentences in one expression or three independent thoughts. If that were to be left like that, that would be a grammatical, a mechanical error in that statement. A mechanical error. So the mechanics, the punctuation marks, help you to get your thoughts in line and to understand what is being said. So it is very often that when you're writing, you put a comma. So let us look at this expression. The man ate the apple. It tasted delicious. Full stop. All right. End of thought. But actually, there are two independent thoughts in this expression. So what you tend to do is to put a comma there. Many times. You just put the comma. You have a sense, that you want to separate the thought. So you just put the comma because you have not really mastered the use of the semicolon. So I would like you to remember that when you are thinking of using the semicolon, you should actually have come to the end of an independent thought or a sentence. But you still want to go on and say something more. So you put the semicolon there and connect the sentence to the other thoughts that you want to say. But before you insert the semicolon, ensure that the remainder of the expression can also stand as a sentence. That's it. So let us look at this one, number 1. So it says, the man ate the apple, it tasted delicious. So the end of the first independent thought is at apple. Okay? So I'm going to erase this. All right? And what should I put there instead? A semicolon. That's what you need to know today. So I'm going to put the semicolon there. Remember how the semicolon is written? Okay? Dot and curve. Okay, the semicolon. So what we have done now is connect the two independent thoughts. Okay, you really wanted to say something about the apple. You weren't really finished. But actually, this could stand by itself. So it's not a comma that goes there, because a comma is going to create a run-on sentence. And that's even worse than not putting any mark. All right then? So the man ate the apple, semicolon, it tasted delicious. Okay. Correct use of the semicolon. Let's look at number 2 now. The pandemic is exactly a nightmare in disguise. Due to the loss of jobs and being way back in school. Crime rate has also increased during this period. So what is the rule, the critical point? I need to punctuate this. I need to look for the first independent expression or the first sentence. All right? Where in number 2 do you see the idea of an independent thought? Where would you say the first independent thought ends? At school. Let's read it now. The pandemic is exactly a nightmare in disguise due to the loss of jobs and being way back in school. It's understood, okay? But what do we have here? A comma. So instead of putting the semicolon, you have placed the comma, and that's wrong, okay? When you place the comma here, you create a run-on sentence, and that is not a good thing. So therefore, I am going to erase the comma from here. Okay? And I am going to put instead the semicolon. Okay? That's the semicolon. Now, I am going to put it to the test. If I have placed the semicolon correctly, then the rest of the expression is supposed to stand as a sentence. So let's try it and see. Crime rate has also increased during this period. Can that stand? Yes, it is. Crime rate has also increased during this period, right now, but you can sense a sense of something is wanting. You know, so a connection. Where is the connection? What is this period referring to? So that's it. When the sentence has something of itself in the former expression, as in when we were looking at the fabrics and we saw that the colors, you could find one color in the other. So the crime rate has also increased during this period. What period? So see it here? Pandemic. So that's how you see the relationship between the thoughts. Even though the two expressions are independent, they are really needing to be connected with the semicolon right here. All right then? And that's all we have time for today.